Picatrix, Chapter 2, Book 2. The Images of Heaven and Their Secrets. It must be known that to speak of the images of heaven is very difficult and profound, because all the wise have enclosed and concealed this work as far as they were able. I will explain to you the reason for this concealment, especially as those who seek and desire to study the aforesaid science and to attain their desire to understand every form and image may study the great book of images that was composed by the sage Rosuz, who in that book gave all the images and forms well and completely. The ascensions of the images of heaven are of two manners, of which one is the 48 forms drawn from the constellations. This is what we see changing according to the rising and setting of the fixed stars, which are changed from sign to sign, and other images of heaven, such as the constellations of the dog, the bear, the rooster, and the like. All these images change from sign to sign and from place to place, and do not simply move in accordance with the heavens as a whole. The constellations in the signs of the zodiac change much more than the others because in 1,000 years they move from face to face. Those constellations that are around the poles, on the other hand, do not move visibly in the same 1,000 years because they move together in a small circle, which is why even in 1,000 years they do not appear to move. This manner is called the way of the constellations. The second manner calculates the images according to the opinion of the Hindus, who arrange them in this way. In the first face of Aries, there rises a man with red eyes and a large beard, wrapped in a garment of white linen, seeming to make great gestures, and wearing a great white cloak tied around him with a rope, and standing on one foot, as though regarding something in front of him. In the second face of Aries rises a woman wrapped in a linen cloak, clad in red garments, having only one leg, and with a face similar to that of a horse, full of anger and seeking garments, ornaments, and sons. In the third face of Aries rises a man colored red and white, with red hair, angry and restless, having a sword in his right hand and a staff in his left, and clad in red garments. And he is learned and a perfect master of ironworking, and desires to do good, but cannot. In this way, they proceed to the last face of the signs. Next, you should learn that they do not calculate these figures in any way except from the nature of the stars and signs. In this way, you will be able to understand what was said above concerning the second face. All their sayings are of this sort. What I have said up to this point, you will be able to understand by using your senses and your imagination, and thus you will be able to make all things according to your wishes. Ibn al-Aqsi said, likewise, in his book, which he translated from the language of the Nabateans, which was called Timahanin, and speaks of the triplicities of the signs. One of them he named the watery triplicity, and wrote there what he said about the northern constellations. This is what he said. When someone seems to speak of water, a river, a swamp, or any other thing similar to them, you ought to understand that its work is in water. In the same way, all the other figures of the triplicities that are assigned to fire, earth, or air should be understood in the same way. This is the way that Tumtum proceeded along with all the other sages who discussed the figures and degrees of heaven. This is what they said about the names of the degrees, and they also said the same thing when they gave examples of their forms in their places, because all these are signs by which you will be able to understand the powers and workings of the degrees. Thus, you ought to interpret them in the same way. As an example of the foregoing, when someone refers to a mutilated head and mutilated hands, he means by this phrase death and weakness, and the way of one planet with others, because all these are ways to understand the effects of the planets and how other bodies are strengthened by them, so that marvels and the effects of the planets in these bodies become apparent. In this way, you should understand the whole art of magic. You should know that the effects of the planets are many and varied, and these effects are different in every degree of the heavens. That is, when a particular planet is in a particular degree, or when it is conjunct with other planets there. If you desire to know the number of their possible effects, that is, of every planet and every degree of the heavens, multiply 367 times, and the product will be 2,520. And every one of these aspects has diverse effects by itself. If you then multiply 366 times, the result, the number of conjunctions of any two planets in a single degree, will be 2,160. And these aspects similarly have power and cause wonders in this world. If, however, you multiply 365 times, the result is the number of conjunctions of three planets in a single degree, or 1,800. And these aspects similarly have power and cause wonders in this world. If you multiply 364 times, the result is the number of conjunctions of any four planets in a single degree, or 1,440. And these aspects similarly have power and cause wonders in this world. If you then multiply 363 times, the result is the number of conjunctions of any 5 planets in a single degree, or 1,080. And these aspects similarly have power and cause wonders in this world. If you multiply 360 twice, the result is the number of conjunctions of any 6 planets in 1 degree, or 720. And these aspects similarly cause wonders in this world, like the ones already mentioned. If you multiply 360 once, the result is the number of conjunctions of all 7 planets in a single degree, or 360. And these aspects similarly have power and cause wonders in this world. This is the way in which the sage first mentioned above understood things. When it is written of the figures of heaven and their judgments, what a given figure signifies, and likewise about the motions of the 7 planets and the degrees of the signs. The coordinated sum of these figures is 10,080, and each of these aspects has powers and accomplishes marvels. After this, however, the same sage first mentioned above said that when you wish to learn these aspects, you should do it in the following way. Put one of the 7 planets in one degree and another in a different degree, and repeat this with all of the 7 planets, and then put them in any 2 degrees you wish, and do the same thing in every degree of the heavens, of which there are 360. This way is longer than the one already described, but more accurate, and thereby you will be able to understand the powers and the effects of these aspects in this world. When you have done this, you should calculate the conjunctions made by the 7 planets as they travel through the degrees with the fixed stars, as well as their application to the fixed stars, and the separations of their movements from them, and the separation of the fixed stars from them. Then, you should commit all of this to memory and understand it well, so that you will be able to calculate aspects. Be careful not to reveal the properties of these aspects to anyone, except those who are destined to receive them.